My name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and we're continuing with Saturnastra, Deasura. This is chapter 17. Month 6, day 15, year 6. After months of observation and surveillance, I finally provided enough tactical information for the Navy to advance on Liberi, and Calico was to be conveniently up north along with other courtiers. Courtiers were legitimate pirates who collected taxes from merchant ships who were lying about their earnings. And their ties with Veragueros were a hush-hush secret business, and the identity of those who belonged to the group was unknown. And aside from the unofficial tax collection and predation of foreign ships, the courtiers kept tabs on their private presence in the ocean. When their numbers grew too large, the Navy would engage on a large-scale operations to cull their numbers, and with the help of the dragon riders. And while they were not used more often as a matter of much debate in the mainland, and it certainly showed the hidden tensions between the dragon riders and the ruling elite of Veraguero. And there was also the issue that mobilizing the draconic army required large amounts of resources. After all, dragons had an expensive diet supported by gold and precious minerals, and it was usually cheaper to use humans instead of relying on those overpowered monstrosities. And there were currently attempts to form legions of other flying creatures to serve as a cheaper substitute. According to Calico, the tamers were trying out cockatrices, and they were proving to be a bit of a disappointment, and like the common rooster, they could not maintain aerial flying for very long. They were only capable of jumping over walls and running really fast, and griffins and hippogriffs too were in the roster, but they were not native to this continent, and efforts were on the way to obtaining them from the western continent, and both were placed in different areas, so they would not have to compete for resources like the dragons, and lightning bursts too would pass by the continent during their annual migration, and they were large and magical too, which was always a desired aspect. However, they were unruly, and all efforts to domesticate them had resulted in someone dying, usually the trainer. And another large bird that ran through the gauntlet of domestication was the roc, R-O-C, but no K. It too was a failure insomuch that the tamers could not make it do anything remotely practical. And as for Liberi, it was destroyed in a single night, and the flight of dragons swarmed the city, torching buildings and devouring the town for. And from an outsider perspective, it seemed like they were killing at random. However, they had very specific targets they had to slaughter, and the rest were rounded up like sheep to be brought back to the mainland. Efforts were made to escape in the underground tunnels and other safe passages that had been constructed over the last 20 years. And these were pointless, as the dragons could sniff them out and track the humans with the same accuracy as any bloodhounds. And the prophet of Hemi was captured and imprisoned, and there was a certain degree of superstition about killing a true prophet, and just to be safe, they were usually ritually executed by the priest of Arasa, and the ships that tried to escape were sunk by the rest of the flight of dragons. And at the end of the operation, some 2,000 pirates were killed, and the number rose to 5,810 after continued operations. And according to the cross-examination from Nicholas Rea, who kept track of piracy in the Sea Dragon Archipelago, there were only 2 unlicensed pirate crews still in operation. One had escaped the slaughter because it had crashed, and the other because it was training in the mainland. And the camping power created by the hurricane that assaulted the coast in Mita had allowed for piracy to flourish over the last 2 years. And sea trade around the continent was suffering, and when it became too expensive to ignore the problem, the dragons were always deployed. And as for my situation, I had to tread with light footing among the Navy officers, and none were too pleased with my little getaway stunt. However, the corsairs from Veraguero had a pardon program for pirates who wanted to work for the benefit of king and country. And both groups gave me the vibe that as far as seafaring was concerned, there was not a unified front. And the corsairs were always at odds with the Navy, and regardless, I got pardoned for my crimes after committing hundreds of robberies and manslaughter. It is silly if you think about it, but that is just the world I live in at the moment. With legitimacy, there came new problems. Sure, I was allowed to continue my operation, but not without conditions. And food was returned to the dragon riders, and most of my crew was taken and integrated into other crews. And they were not in the ranking of the powder monkeys, but most of them agreed that they would work less in their new positions, and apparently I was some sort of slave driver with the studying and the working and the training. and I was given the insurance of a bare minimum of 10 to populate my new crew and vessel, and I naturally took the twins and Leaf, Rudolph, and Gentivius, and I got the youngest orphans, Farah, and Baby, in part because they lacked the skills to warrant any significant ranking within the courtiers, and I kept Clarissa because of the baby, and Eclipse was also fond of the girl. And then there was my quartermaster, Jean Perret, and the cook Gillian Serna, and the pair had a lot of enemies, and they would not have survived in other ships. I also had a mutual parting of the way with my handmaiden Lunette, and she had recovered her memory, which was a bit awkward, and she was trying hard to pretend not to remember for fear of me. And I informed Calico who she was, and he promised to dispose of her properly, whatever that's supposed to mean. Month 6, day 3, year 30. No, year 6, day 30. The voyage in the Faustina. For the past week or so, I have been traveling in Calico's Faustina, and he had named the ship after his dead stillborn twin sister. Whenever he went on island, Calico never failed to place flowers in Faustina's grave, and it was a majestic galleon that was said to be unsinkable, but not from lack of trying. It has survived more than 37 naval battles and about 371 ship takeovers. And there was nothing particularly awesome about this galleon, and it was ordinary as far as ships goes, but there was a certain charm about it which can explain its success out at sea. And the Faustina was currently on course for the port of Bangor, and it had 40,000 people, and it made its money through the commodity exports of sugar and furs. And it was located in one of the southernmost islands of the Sea Dragon Archipelago, and aside from these basic facts, there was not much else to tell about the area. For some reason, it was located in one of the few magical voids of the continent, and places like that for some reason do not produce any magic. And there is something dead and lackluster about those somber places. Why or how such places, why such places come to be in Saturnastra is a matter of much debate. And since this town does not have a lack of magic, the observer has not bothered to pay attention to it. Perhaps it has something to do with their logging operations. Today, to amuse myself, Calico was telling me one of his city embarrassing stories. And whenever he goes on one of his drunken ravings, I normally depart, and this time the behavior was affected, meaning that he was not drunk, rather he was pretending to be. I said plainly to Calico, "What is it that you truly want?" "Well, as a new member of the Corsairs, there is some formalities I am forced to address," said Calico, suddenly turning serious. Yes, you need some dirt on me, I presume," I said coyly. "From what I hear, your little brats have proven to be quite troublesome to manage," explained Calico. "Just what have you been feeding them?" "Nothing out of the ordinary," I said flatly. "That's debatable, and what is ordinary to you might be extraordinary to others," said Calico. I smacked him over the head with a blunt table knife, and annoyed he said, "Stop that." In response, I have smacked him in the head with it again, and this time twice more, and knowing that I like to go in increments of 2, Calico stopped asking stupid questions. And the people in the mainland wanted to know about my family and my social relations, and to attest to the veracity of the answers, he brought forth Mary Ann, one of the lady pirates of his crew. The other was Bonnie Reed, as with most berserker maidens. Mary Ann was a walking lie detector, and it was such a bummer how or when they got such a kooky ability, which many consider a curse. This battle-like frenzy originated from a unique genetic mutation in humans, and when normal humans had a whole flight or fight dichotomy, berserkers had their entire system prepped up for battle. And to enhance the trance, berserker warriors were known to fight without an armor, and only the most skilled warriors could get away with such a stupid thing. And about 99% of all berserkers from Verageddon were married to their armors, which they valued more than their swords. And it also occurred with their bodies were put under intense stress, like when performing physical labor for a prolonged period of time. And aside from this trance, there are other magical elements to the berserker, and those in tune with the ancestral tradition had unique hunting magic, and we don't know really much about it, and the stories in the annals mention shape-shifting elements, and involved with their bodies becoming bulky like those of a troll. And aside from being lie detectors, most of the berserkers I had met were very mild-mannered. And I pondered this and many other subjects while I tonally answered no comment to all of the questions. And I returned from my reverie when Mary Ann smacked the table and yelled, "Are you even listening?" "No comment," I said, grinning. "This is pointless. And why do I even have to answer this question?" asked Mary Ann. Distant Calico said, "No comment." And Marianne started shivering and chattering her teeth, and her face then swollen changed to be red color, almost as she had hypertension or some food allergy, and she punched Calico and knocked him out with blood flowing profusely from his nose. And she then went after me, but I desperately jumped ship, and she tried to swim after me, but only clumsily splashed through the bottlenose dolphins that were on the prow, and they found her splashing and yelling quite amusing. And some even started tugging at her clothing and the soles of her feet, and after an hour she literally cooled off and just lazily started floating on top of the water. And the crew threw ropes, and they tied her around her waist and arms, and they brought her back on board the ship. And while she was taken in a stretcher down to her room, Calico grimaced and said, "Sure, now you get to nap for a couple of days while I had to deal with a broken nose for weeks." I said coolly to him, "At least fix it. He's in the middle of this whatever," said Calico, gesturing to her sleeve. And at the moment Liz was twitching and jumping while making all sorts of whistling sounds. And in the city people could simply pass by and ignore people like Liz. However, on a ship with very few places to go to and see, one could not help but stare at Liz's bizarre worshipping rituals intently. "And what do you see in that guy?" asked Calico. "I see the same thing that I see in you," I said, smiling coyly. And I fixed Calico's nose after this exchange, and it was neither the first nor the last time it had been broken. Through my abilities, it was able to regain its original shape, for which Calico was quite baffled. Staring at his reflection in the mirror, he said, "This isn't my nose." "Trust me, it is your stupid original nose," I said, sighing. And looking down towards the water, he asked, pointing to the dolphins, "How do you command those fishes?" "The same way you command your troops," I answered. "Ha ha ha, very funny," said Calico, narrowing his eyes. "Look, just because you ask me a question, there's no guarantee that I will give you an answer," I said, frowning. "Pity, and I do so enjoy your company," said Calico, snorting. And he frowned at the bizarre piggy sound his nose made, and he was still not used to his original nose. Not in a mood, we continued the conversation. I went back into the water, even if it meant swimming with those pesky, nosy Parker dolphins. And while taking some distance, I used Lucky to eavesdrop on the conversation. And it was a little hobby I so indulged from time to time, and it is said that which comes out of one's mouth stains you. And so I wanted to do a Calico stain as much as I found him annoying. I needed his influence to help me support my siblings and the few companions that still did not know how to fish. And whenever I was not about, Calico would pester my companion with information about me, and today he was bothering Gillian. And he was in the kitchen trying to find some edible gruel, and Calico School was the sort of man who liked to cut corners more often than not, and he would make bits and pieces of almost rotting flesh with every new food, and food poisoning and indigestion was a common staple in Calico's ship, and for this reason Sacha and Judah had taken to going out to fishing. And with his usual directness, Calico said to Gillian, "Find anything you like?" "No," said Gillian flatly. "And how are you to stay? And if you need anything, do not be afraid to ask," said Calico, giving a warm, inviting smile. Gillian grimaced when he saw those skinny golden teeth pointed his way, and Gillian narrowed his eyes and said, "Go bother someone else." "Geez, why is everyone in the Deasura's crew so frosty flakes, and I'm only trying to be your friend," said Calico, pouting. "You are not as charming as you think you are," said Gideon flatly, and he started making his way towards the deck. "Come on, tell me what's really the matter," insisted Calico. "Oh, like you don't know. Whenever the warden leaves behind stays her little rainbow goat and watches all that we say and do for her own amusement," said Gideon. And he shivered a bit at desert. "When not being pestered by that goat, there is the candy cane spook." "I see," said Calico, thinking Gideon had gotten mad. And right on cue, Sandal started his creepy stalking across the cabins, and he would stop from time to time to take in the sights. And he was in a new boat, and he found everything and everyone fascinating, and it did not show in his toy death mask, and Calico could not see, or rather he refused to see, Sandaless and Rainbow. And Sandaless had become more independent with each passing day, and Calico knew from reports that Gideon was that notorious serial killer that liked chopping people up and leaving their torsos to run down the river. And how Deasura had managed to keep her entire crew in one piece alive was still a matter of much debate. And while soaking in the water, I suddenly remembered Lunette, and I think I handled the entire situation a bit wrong, and I set a matching potion to chase her back to her old form, with a spiteful note saying, "Sorry for punishing you for attempted murder, and if you wish to return, to normal, drink half of this potion, and you were useful to me during your amnesia phase. and even pleasant to be around. And if you wish to remain Lunette and forget about your former life, just drink the rest, just drink this. And in the end, Lunette drank the entire potion and forgot her former life, and I gave unto her Lucky as her personal guardian. And I changed my focus again to what Calico was up to, and he had heard plenty of bizarre rumors about me, and for the first time he was disappointed by what a boring person I appeared to be. Aside from he thought I could command sea creatures to do my bidding. However, I had a dozen understanding with them, and as far as I am concerned, mindless drones made poor allies. And another thing I found slightly irritating was Calico trying to decipher what were my leadership credentials, as if you had to make good decisions to be a leader. And my crew simply never challenged my authority due to their irrational fear of my broad-finned sharks. Then again, most pirates had never set foot in the actual ocean, and yet they consider themselves masters of the 7 seas or 13, depending on who you ask. And truth be told, nautical exploration is far behind, and just getting to the nearest continent in total may take 10 months with favorable conditions. And even when they arrive, the place has a certain rustic feel to it, and no outsider is willing to deal with the rough wilderness. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye and God bless.